Phil, are you taken aback by all this sudden film mania that's going on?
Cabbage Patch Doll mania, I don't know.
You read that, huh?
Oh, yeah, I read everything.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing escapes my attention. Sure, I'm surprised by it, yeah. I mean, some of these girls weren't even born when I joined Genesis, let alone when I was born. I'm very surprised. I'm surprised at any kind of success. I mean, I know it sounds over-modest, and probably people say, oh, don't give me that stuff. But in fact, I don't consider myself to be in the same league as the people that I am now competing with. So, you know, I'm still a fan of other people. And, you know, it's not a lot of pressure, because I respond well to pressure. But suddenly every gig's important. Every gig, you know, 18,000 people a night, 7 nights on the trot, 8 nights on the trot, a night off, another 8. You know, that's a lot of strain.
What do you think about, after all these years that you were more kind of behind the scenes as a drummer with Genesis, as a producer, now you're more of a pop star?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's just, it's a very gradual thing that you don't actually think about. I think the audience is just widening, and the records are reaching more people. So there's never been that big change. I mean, I suppose the first date we played on this North American tour was in Worcester, and that was the first time that we'd sort of become aware that there were lots of people out there that were the screaming element, you know, that were pop fans as opposed to music fans, which I always considered maybe my audience was, especially with the solo thing, because it was more of a musical. Not that Genesis isn't. I mean, Genesis is very musical. It was just that, I suppose, because of the pickup band sort of situation, when you've got lots of great musicians all put together in a band, that makes it appear more musical. Right. So I would have thought that was really my fans. But there's a mixture of everything now, a mixture of age groups and all kinds of people that like different types of music.
Mm-hmm. I hear that from reading those articles that your band is very straight on the road in terms of they don't get into crazy stuff.
Who told you that? The band, right? Well, I don't know how straight is straight. I mean, there are. I think that the excessive aspects of being in a band is pretty much overblown anyway. I think that is a bit of a fallacy. There are. It's always been a fallacy in terms of whatever I've done. I mean, I don't think. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 road romances in 15 years. You know, I mean, that's very, very slight. So it's. I think it's a bit overblown in most cases. There are, of course, bands that will rear their head and say, no, I object. We party all the time. But you can't really play this kind of music and stay up all night. I mean, I've tried, and you just can't.
You love to play the comic on stage. You like to have a lot of fun, right? When did the comedy come into the stage?
Oh, it's always been there, really. When I was just drumming with Pete, we used to have a lot of comic banter on stage. I was his stooge, basically, with the one-handed drum solo and lots of little bits. Whenever the equipment broke down, which was quite frequent in those days, and the things would grind to a halt, we'd have to pull something out of the bag, and it was invariably between me and him that we did it. And he also used to have a humorous rapport with the audience, a little bit removed humorous rapport, but it was they used to laugh nevertheless. And I kind of felt that was very important because it deflated some of the grandiose aspects of the music. So when he left and I, you know, got stuck with a job, I wanted to keep that going.
Some listeners said that you even reminded them of Steve Martin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I owe a lot to Steve Martin's jokes. I mean, not when I first, actually, with Brand X, I think was the first tour that I did, having discovered Steve Martin. Through Let's Get Small and Wild and Crazy Guy, and I'm a big fan of him, and I have tried very hard to avoid using as many Steve Martin-isms on this new tour, this recent tour, and to a lesser extent on the last Genesis tour, but I was trying to phase it out because it became such part of my vocabulary, as John Cleese is with Fawlty or Basil Fawlty or the Python thing, it becomes part of your conversation. And if you listen in on in a band conversation, it's there all the time.
Yeah.
And our whole thing revolves around it. And I just suddenly figured out, well, thank you very much. You know, that to an audience is to Steve Martin. To me, it's just me.
Yeah.
But of course, it is Steve Martin.
But also to the audience, it gets a laugh.
Well, yeah, yeah. But then I don't really want to. I mean, I don't feel so bad about plagiarising comics as I do about music. I don't want to do that with music.
Mm-hmm.
The comics is different. I'm not a comedian, so I can take little bits of. I mean, Robin Williams. Everybody's going to have to stand back. I'd like to show you something I'm very proud of. That, you know, that is a Robin Williams joke. I'm sure there's a couple of Bill Murray-isms in there somewhere, and lots of Steve Martin. But I'm trying to phase it out and be humorous myself.
Who writes your material?
Steve Martin, Bill Murray. No, anything that's not anybody else's, I write.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
That's good to see. I want to take it back a little bit. You were also in on Sessions for All Things Must Pass, right?
Yeah, but that was when I was 16.
Wow.
And I got a phone call from the manager of the band, well, Flaming Youth it was, actually. And we never did that much work, Flaming Youth. We had a good album. And
Got a lot of good critical response.
never did that many gigs. Anyway, I was sitting at home one night watching TV, and I got a phone call from one of them saying, "What are you doing?" And I just out of the bath or something. I said, "Well, I'm just watching TV." And he said, "Well, do you want to do a session?" I said, "Well, you know, I'm just watching TV. I don't really fancy coming into London. I lived out of London." And he said, "Well, okay, well, George Harrison wants a percussionist." So I said, "Okay, where is it?" You know, and this is unbelievable. So I got in a cab because I didn't drive. You see, I didn't have a car. Well, I had a car actually, but I didn't think it would get there. It was a real old thing. So I got a cab, and it was very frustrating actually because this guy insisted on taking me past everywhere that he knew.
Oh no.
And I was in a hurry. You know, one of those cab drivers said, "Oh yeah, I used to live there." You know, "Oh yeah, I used to go to school." I said, "Yes, please get me there, please, find someone else." Anyway, I got there, and Ringo's chauffeur Martin was standing on the doorstep of Abbey Road. You know, I thought, God, I've never been there before. Here I am. I've arrived. You know, and I went in there, and there was Phil Spector producing, and Ringo was playing drums. There was George Harrison. There was Klaus Vormann playing bass. There was Badfinger playing guitars. Pete Drake was a Nashville steel guitar player. He was there. Morris Gibb was there. Mal Evans, you know, the Beatles roadie.
Sure.
Billy Preston. And me, you know. And when I was 16 years old. Yeah. So they were running through this song. I felt very nervous. I mean, I must have been staring at everybody, you know. And everyone was very friendly. Harrison wasn't particularly that friendly. He was all right. But, I mean, Billy Preston was quite friendly, and so was Ringo. And they showed me to my corner where my congas were. And because I didn't really play percussion, you know. I was a drummer, so I could obviously handle it, but I wasn't a very good percussionist. So, anyway, I'll never forget, because Phil Spector had... He was in the control room, and everyone put their phones on. He said, "Okay, now let's run this song down." He said, "Let's play it with guitars, drums, and basses, right?" So every time he said drums, I started playing. And then he said, "Okay, let's hear it with just acoustic guitars and bass and drums." And let's hear. He went through all the different combinations, right? And about an hour later, my hands are red raw from playing these congas. And at the very end, right, he said, "Okay, congas, you play this time." And he had my mic closed, so I've been playing for nothing, man. I mean, I had blisters all over my hand.
And you were doing some of the best congas.
Yeah. Anyway, and of course, everybody, when they looked round, because they'd seen me, like, sweating, you know, they'd all look round and laughed, which all kind of broke the ice, which wasn't what he intended, but... Anyway, so I rang my mum up after we finished the session. George suddenly said, "Okay, you know, let's have a break."
What song was that you were...
The Art of Dying.
Ah.
But it wasn't on the album, you see. The song was. Yeah, the song was, but not the version we did.
Oh.
Harrison said, "Let's take a break," and I was sitting around talking to somebody, I don't even know who it was now. And I said, "What are they doing? Surely this is costing money." And they said, "We've been here weeks, man. We haven't done anything yet." And £4,000 then was a lot of money, you know, in studio time. I don't know, £20 an hour or something stupid. That's a lot of money. And the head of EMI was coming down to George Harrison and said, you haven't recorded anything yet? What do you think this is, you know? And they just disbanded for the night. And he said, "Oh, well, we've been trying different versions of different songs." So what I did was to rush out when the album came out. And I frantically opened the box and looked, you know, keyboards, you know, and guitars and basses and drums. Jim Keltner, Jim Gordon, Ginger Baker. And there was nothing. I wasn't anywhere. And I listened to the song, and of course they'd used another version of it. They'd just done another version. So I was there, but I have no proof, apart from the fact that I never cashed the check, and I've still got the check at home.
You joined Genesis out of a newspaper ad?
Yeah, the Melody Maker, back pages of Melody Maker. Yes, musicians wanted, you know.
Musicians wanted drummer for a...
Drummer, well, it didn't say what band it was, just said drummer sensitive to acoustic music. And being my professional auditioner, I kind of, I think, yeah, I can do that. I can do anything. So I went along with the guy that was playing bass with Flaming Youth, who's still a very good friend of mine, Ronnie Carroll. And we went along, and he thought, because they were looking for a guitar player as well, and he thought he'd got the job, and he said, "I think you blew it, man. I don't think you got it." No. Because I could, I didn't sound that great. And then of course I got the job and he didn't. But that was back in 1970.
I have in 75 Peter left Genesis, right? And how were your feelings at the time? Did you think that you wanted to step out front, become singer?
No, it was such a thing that happened so gradually. I mean, it's like one of those things, like you're talking about success happening gradually. This was like one of those things that just developed, and suddenly that's the way it was. I mean, we were looking for a singer, and we were auditioning singers every Monday, and guys would come down. I knew the songs, so I taught them. I was the best singer of the band, so I taught them how to, what the melody was, and gave them a lyric sheet, and we'd do a bit of this and a bit of that. And I was ending up sounding better than they were, so in the end, we still, actually, there was no end, really. We just kept looking for singers.
Something like 400 auditions?
Well, about 400 tapes, We didn't actually audition that many people, I don't think. We had about 10 a day for about 5 or 6 weeks. So meanwhile, we were writing music. Every day we'd go in and we were writing what was to become a Trick of the Tail, but we didn't have a singer. So we went into Trident Studios to record it, again without a singer. And we finished the backing tracks without a singer. And suddenly there was nothing else to do but to sing. So I said, well, I'll have a go, Let me have a go. So we actually did take one guy in that didn't sound very good because the song was not in his key. And that made me say, listen, I've got to have a go at this because I can do better than this. So I went in and we did Squonk first. So that was the first one I ever sang. And then one by one, we just rattled them all off. And then suddenly we'd finished the album, but still no singer.
Except you.
Yeah, but I was still the drummer. Yeah. So then we had another couple of weeks looking for singers, thinking that maybe we'd find someone we'd missed before. And no, so I said, listen, how about if I sing? If we find another drummer. So they said, yeah, if you think you can do it. I mean, if you think you can do it.
You were really shy about it, weren't you, coming out?
Yeah, I didn't really want to, I mean, I wanted to play the drums. That's what I really like to do. And I didn't want to go out front and wiggle my bottom.
77 was another big decision for you because at that point, you had decided that the only way that Genesis was to continue and to continue to grow was to go out and tour extensively and to crack the American market. And there were a lot of consequences of that decision. Your marriage breaking up, for one. How do you look back at it now?
I'm not allowed to look back at it now.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, it's I've vowed to various people that I'm just going to stop talking about that part of my life now.
Yeah.
It was as a result of touring and just, working too much with regard to touring. So, anyway, with the end of 78 arriving and my marriage having stopped, I then had I was in a bit of much of a upheaval, emotional upheaval. So I said to the other guys in the band, listen, I'm going to have to get away and try and patch it up. So if we can manage life like that, like with me going to Vancouver and everything happening in Vancouver like that, like recording, writing, and which is obviously totally off the wall thing to say. Expect the other guys to give up what they've done, So I said, we've got to deal, but otherwise I'm afraid I've left, So I did leave almost for a couple of months, and then I came back from Vancouver with things the same. So I decided to just channel my energies into something, because by the time I got back, Mike and Tony had started their own albums because they wanted something to do and they didn't know how long it was going to take. So I came back and I had this equipment upstairs, and I just got I got a grand piano, and I got a synthesizer and a drum machine, and I just started writing. I just started writing music that basically was just therapeutic, I suppose, in retrospect. I didn't intend to make a record. I was just trying to operate the machinery and get things onto tape and, just doodle along, really. Suddenly I came back and I had these songs, and Tony Smith heard them and said, "Why don't you do an album? These songs are great." So what I did, in fact, by the time I got back with Brand X, it was time for Genesis again. So we did Duke, and I played some of my stuff to the guys in Genesis. And we used Misunderstanding, and we used Please Don't Ask for Duke. Although if they hadn't have used them, they'd have been on face value. So we did Duke and went on the road. And then when I came back, I tarted up my demos, which is all in effect what it was. So I used my demos on the album, and I have done on Hello, I Must Be Going and the new one. They start off life as demos, and then I just overdub on top of them. So my album was half done before I even knew I was making a record, So we did Face Value, and that was that. And it came out, and we were all completely amazed. I mean, especially in England, when In the Air got to number 2, because the same week that came out, John Lennon got shot. Oh, okay. And, of course, his records were at number 1. And In the Air was number 2. The album went to number 1. But it was just a complete shock, suddenly a solo album that was done under those circumstances so lazily. I mean, I was very intense, obviously, when I was doing it.
Yeah,
but
the writing especially.
It wasn't, okay, I'm going to make a record. It was just suddenly there was a record, and suddenly people liked it. And then so that's why I'm constantly surprised at all this stuff, because it's really, I just follow my nose, But the one thing that I think I can do is reach people with words. Yeah. And I think that because it's so direct, people think, Christ, how can you say that? I mean, people are embarrassed when they hear my albums about them being so personal. They say, how can you possibly say that? I mean, aren't you embarrassed? I mean, I don't really get embarrassed, to be honest. I'm proud of the fact that I'm not embarrassed about saying that kind of thing. But I think the lyrics do reach, songs like If Leaving Me Is Easy and even One More Night. They're lyrically the kind of thing that people think and the kind of things that people feel. And it's not hidden,
People love you for that. I mean, whenever I speak to fans and friends and stuff like that about your lyrics, there's this absolute love for the honesty in your songs.
Well, I mean, it's really the only way I can write. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the only way I can write, darling. It's the way I do it, so that's the way I do it. But I'm just not a very well-read person, so consequently, it becomes a little harder for me to hide it, because I'm not really a very poetic person in terms of poetry in the true sense of the word. So.
It's hard to define art.
Oh, it's in the eye of the beholder, definitely. I mean, some people like that struggle. Mm-hmm. Some people love to listen to a record and really love to dig through it, Yeah. And I think they shouldn't all be on the surface. I mean, although my lyrics are pretty open and direct, there are still things underneath. I mean, in the music that I would like to think there. You don't listen to them 3 or 4 times and that's the end of it.
Did you read that article in the Times about calling you the new Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah. You see? I met that guy. I liked the way he. I mean, he found out things about me that I didn't really think about. Mm-hmm. I mean, Take Me Home is a very personal song, I suppose. Because, I mean, the lyrics were all improvised. A lot of my lyrics are improvised. Yeah. I mean, In the Air was all improvised, and I just wrote the words down after I sang it, and then I used it in the recording, because what I do at home is I sing along for lyrical ideas and vocal melody ideas. And then I write down anything that I've sung, because I like the way, if it's spontaneous, I try and use it. And In the Air was 99, apart from 1 or 2 lines, was all there. Wow, when I actually opened my mouth and sang it. So I must have been pretty heavy that day,
You were.
But a song like Take Me Home was the same. There's about 2 or 3 lines in the verses where I didn't have. But all the Take Me Home, I Don't Mind, and as I've been a prisoner all my life, Take This Look of Worry, I'm an Ordinary Man, all that was improvised. So I think it must be from inside. And he said that he said, when I did an interview with him, and he said that there's, I'm probably to him, I'm one of the best writer of paranoid songs.
Exactly.
So I suppose, I'm not paranoid. What are you looking at me for? What's this microphone doing here?
But he also said that No Jacket Required might not necessarily...
Straight jacket, yeah. I love all that. I mean, you know, it's nice to get someone looking at your songs and seeing something else other than just saying, aren't they bland pop songs? You know, it's nice to get someone looking at it with a bit more depth, because I'm sure there's more there than just the simplistic.
There is.
Yeah, although I don't think about it, but it's nice to read it and say, oh yeah, that could be true.
And no, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah. I'll remember that for the interviews, yeah.
We get that period that we were talking about a little while before. You wrote a lot of songs in that period, including a song that you didn't include on Face Value because you had too many ballads, and you thought that wasn't a good one. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I had it for Hello, I Must Be Going as well, but I'd written so much new stuff for Hello, I Must Be Going that I'd forgotten about it, to be honest. It was one of those also-rans. I mean, there were bits also on earlier stuff that's surfacing now. I mean, Against All Odds is a song we're talking about, and that was then called How Can You Sit There? And I had it as a demo, and that's as far as it ever got. Taylor Hackford asked me if I could write a song. I said, I can't write a song. I haven't got time. I don't really write on the road. So I've got a song, though, that I've never used, if you want it. And he listened to it and loved it, and I wrote some words. And that was that. And we recorded it on 2 days off. One day off in New York, did the orchestra and piano, and the next day off in LA we had Arif Mardin, who was producing it, flew in, and we did the drums and the vocals, because by that time I'd written the words. And that was that. And then we sort of communicated by phone, these mixes, and the thing went to number one. I couldn't believe it.
Okay, we're getting into No Jacket Required. We're almost up to the present. Sussudio. Now, I heard that in England you got criticized for, this is sounds a lot like Prince.
Yeah. Well, not just Prince, but 1999 specifically.
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah, well, I see, when I first started writing this stuff for the new album, I said to myself, I want to write some different kind of songs, because I didn't want to be known as a miserable sod, you know, which is, you know, a lot of my songs are not necessarily miserable, but they're about a certain aspect of relationships, which isn't necessarily the most optimistic. So I decided to do some dance-orientated songs. You know, I wanted to try and learn how to write those kind of things. I was fascinated by the sort of the black stuff, which is just hangs on a groove for like minutes, you know, I mean 6 or 7 minutes, 3 chords, but it still hangs on a groove and still works. And I really wanted to try and crack that. And I took a few tempos of different, well, not a few, I took a couple of tempos from songs that I liked as a starting point. And that was really all it ever was. I mean, in 1999, I loved that song.
That's a great song.
I bought it when it first came out, and I used to listen to it on the road, and, you know, I just took the tempo. It's funny because it's a dance thing, but it actually feels quite slow.
Yeah.
And so I locked it in. I locked it into the drum machine. That's the end of it. Put the cassette back in the case, you know, and that was it. But, you know, you sort of start to get into a kind of, if you play chords like I do, I'm not a lead player on a keyboard player. I play chords, and so you start playing chords. Suddenly you start sounding like Prince, you know, and you got this string synthesizer sound, which he's made to be very fashionable again.
Right.
You know, went out of fashion mid-70s, you know, because nobody wanted that sound, and now everybody's doing it again. But if you play chords on it, I defy you. I mean, there's lots of records that are out that if you play chords on it with that sound, you sound like Prince, and that's not a bad thing. I'd love to sound like Prince. I mean, I'm a big Prince fan, you know, and it's R&B. I want to try and get more of that in my music.
I understand that Only You Know and I Know is an update of an Ernest K. Doe song, Mother-in-Law.
Yes, the mother-in-law aspect is true. Well, it's only one line, really. It was. I think the sentiment is true that a lot of the time you can see two people and you think they're not very close, you know, but really they're communicating in their own way, you know. I mean, and sometimes, I mean, for instance, Jill and I mean, on the surface, we're at each other's throats all the time, you know. I mean, but in a very light-hearted way. But really, it's one of those things that only you know and I know, really know the things that we mean to say. And the mother-in-law thing was that when Jill first showed her mother a picture of me, she said, and that she was going away to live with this rock musician. She said, "Oh no, Love Is Blind." So
made you feel great.
Made me feel great. Well, listen, there's nothing. I've since developed. I've gone to greater things like Cabbage Patch Dolls. I mean,
yes.
I'm really I'm experimenting with all this stuff.
But did you also read in that same article the women are swooning over you now?
Yeah, yes, I suppose that I did read that. It's in the article. I must have read it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that kind of stuff, though.
You should have seen it. I was out there looking in your audience in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Women love it.
I think probably they like this idea of someone that needs to be taken aside and sorted out, you know, which is maybe what the image that I put over. I don't know.
One More Night is it went to number 1. What do you say about? Why don't you talk a little about the song? Do you have an intro for it? I hear you use in concert.
The magic moment when you find the girl of your dreams, just to find she's putting it about a bit. Well, really, it's when you sort of get involved with someone and you think that this person is the most important thing to you. You're only after one date, you know, you're suddenly very infatuated with this person. And, but then you might walk out on the street and see her with somebody else and realise that, okay, I'm infatuated with her. She's obviously not got the message. So it was one more opportunity, one more night, just to show exactly that this could be the right situation. I could be the right man for the gig, you know. So it's an optimistic kind of thing, really. I mean, the fact that you're going out with this person and you know, you may never see her again. So unless you just get that one more chance.
When did you find out about it? Where were you? Do you remember? When it went to number 1 and somebody told you? Hey, Phil.
I don't remember.
No.
I don't remember. I think probably, I mean, the week we came over for the Academy Awards, the album and single went to number 1.
Oh.
So it was probably around that time. I think maybe the single was at number 1 and the album was number 2, or the album had gone up to number 1 and the single was going up there. But I remember that week. That was a very important week.
Strange week for you, too, wasn't it? I mean, it was all this great stuff, and then...
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, I think to be nominated for the Academy Award was to me, a 9 out of 10. You know, I mean, no one knows whether I came second, third, or fifth, or fourth.
You don't.
What did I miss out for?
They don't tell you that, do they?
They don't tell you that. I could have been second for all I know. But I mean, so it was a 9 out of 10. You know, the 10 out of 10 was getting it.
Yeah.
I had a great week. You know, it's been a great year. I mean, I've got nothing to complain about at all. Easy Lover, One More Night, the album. You know, the tour. It's all going incredibly well. I mean, it's all over the world. I mean, we're doing a world tour, and it's been doing the same thing everywhere. As soon as we leave, it goes up to number 1, and I certainly can't complain about anything. Not getting it is just there's 5 very, very good songs. Well, there's a few good songs, but 5 very, very good artists. And, you know, and it's in the eyes of the Academy.
Yeah.
And the Academy are made up of different type of people. I don't know. I was pleased and proud to be there. And I feel sorry for Anne Rankin to have to be put through that. She chose to be put through it, but I feel sorry for her even so.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it is a big joke in the music industry.
yeah.
I mean,
I felt, walking out to that much animosity, which is not animosity, because no one felt that negative.
not to her personally.
No,
Yeah.
but just about the whole thing that had gone down, and nobody really understanding why.
Right.
When there's Ray Parker and Denise Williams.
Right.
Why not everybody else if they want to do it?
Especially that song, which is you. It really, you know.
There's funny things going down, but anyway, we're reading Rolling Stone somewhere. Larry Gelbart's going to reply to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Okay, good. This is an obligatory question because everybody always wants to know. Everyone seems to worry that your solo success means the end of Genesis. Now, where does Genesis stand now? Project on tap? Tour?
Yeah, we're doing an album in October, and we've got to write the music yet, but, you know, that's the way we worked on the last album, with nothing written, just coming together and writing. And I think there's every possibility that the thing... I mean, I'm not thinking negative thoughts at all. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's still a Genesis as much as there was before this new album of mine came out. A lot of people said it could be very difficult to go back, but I don't think it's any different for me. I'm sure it's no different from the other guys. They'll look at it and sort of laugh, you know, and say, well, you know, you're back with us now, so you're stuck with us, you know. So we'll do the album and then come out on the road next year.
Think a big tour?
Yep, we'll be here in America, and then we'll also go to Europe again, because we haven't been to Europe for a couple of years.
You strike me as the type of guy that builds very solid relationships with people. So, you know...
Yeah, I think we all known each other for too long for any current egos to get in the way, you know. I mean, I know, as well as anybody else does, that there's just as much possibility of my record having been out and it not being a success. You know, there's lots of good music around that isn't, you know, in the charts. And really, it's just right place, right time. Tony and Mike, they make albums. you know, the fact that theirs haven't been successful is not really relevant to anything. It's just, you know, they write good songs and we all enjoy working together, so we'll carry on.
Okay. Do you still have fun on the road? Is it still fun for you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every night I enjoy every night.
Yeah.
The only time, you know, that I just worry myself stupid about my voice because I feel that everybody's watching at me all the time now, and I'm singing songs that have to be sung well. And I don't like going out there and having 18,000 people and sort of explaining to them that you should have been here last night because it was all right, you know. You got to be right every night. So I just worry a bit sometimes about the voice, but apart from that, I enjoy it.